The moon and the sun are about as different as two heavenly bodies could be. The sun is 93 million miles away. 109 Earths would be required to fit across the sun's disk, and its interior could hold over 1.3 million Earths. The moon, on the other hand, is only 250,000 miles away, and its diameter is a mere 3,476 kilometers. That's 2,160 miles. But when there's a solar eclipse, we see them as being identical in size. Is it just a coincidence that our planet Earth happens to be in the only place in the solar system where they both look the same size? The Torah describes the creation of the sun and the moon thus. And God made the two great luminaries, the great luminary to rule by day and the small luminary to rule by night. In the first part of the verse, the Torah refers to both the sun and the moon as great luminaries. In the second part of the verse, it calls the moon the small luminary. Rashi explains that they were both equal when they were created, but the moon complained that two kings cannot share the same crown, so to speak, and Hashem told the moon to make itself small. Hashem told the moon to minimize itself so much that once a month it disappears completely. Now, since the moon was created as a luminary, meaning that its entire function is to shine, so when it no longer radiates light, it is as though that it is no more. Thus, its new appearance is a new existence, something that never happened before. But seeing as this new moon is radiating a new light, so the decree of diminution never applied to this particular moon, and therefore potentially it has the power to grow to its former greatness, as it says in Yeshayahu, the prophet Jeremiah, that a day will come when the light of the moon will be like the light of the sun. The Jewish people are the people of the moon. As we say in Kiddush Levana, the blessing that we make on the new moon, we say that we are asidim lischadesh kamosa. Like the moon, we will be renewed. Like the moon, we will arise from nothing. We are the amuse Botton, awaiting to be born. From nothing, just like the moon. The Shulchan Aruch says that we don't say Tachanon on Tisha B'Av because Tisha B'Av is called a moed, a festival. In fact, the reason that we don't say Tachanon on Rosh Chodesh is derived from Tisha B'Av. As it says in the Pasuk in Eicha, in Lamentations, Kara olai moed lishbo bachurai. All the moedim, all the festivals, except Rosh Chodesh, are there to remember the Exodus. Zeicher L'tzias Mitzrayim. Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month, commemorates no great miracle or extraordinary event. All that happens on Rosh Chodesh is the molad, the birth of the moon. If the fact that Rosh Chodesh is called a moed is learned from Tisha B'Av, so it must be that on some level that they are the same. What is their connection? What is the connection between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Chodesh? Tisha B'Av is a day of utter destruction, when nothing is left. And it's from that total nothingness, like the darkness of the moon, that will come the redemption. The moed of the moon, the moed of the molad from nothing is the moed of Tisha B'Av, the rebirth of the Jewish people from absolute nothing. And it is on that day, the day of Tisha B'Av, that the Moshiach, the Redeemer, will be born. The Beis HaMikdash, the temple, was called the Ohr Shel Olam, the light of the world. The Talmud, the Gemara in Bava Basra, describes how when Herod had regretted killing all the Chachamim, Bava ben Buta told him, Omalei, hu kiba Ohr Shel Olam. You, Herod, you've put out the light of the world. Torah is the light of the world. Ichsiv, ki ne mitzvah v'Torah or, because a mitzvah, an individual mitzvah, is like a candle. V'Torah or, but the Torah is like the entire light. You've put that out. What should you do? Yelech, go, v'yasog ba'Ohr Shel Olam, and busy yourself, involve with yourself with the light of the world. And that was the Beis HaMikdash. The light of the Beis HaMikdash is the light of the world. When that light goes out, it parallels the extinction of the light at every Rosh Chodesh when the moon vanishes. But it's only from that darkest time, from that darkest place, that the rebirth can take place. In the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple, there stood two kruvim, two cherubs. in the Kodesh Kodoshim, in the Holy of Holies. The word karav, cherub, comes from the Aramaic karavia, meaning like a child. The faces of the cherubs were the face of children. Miraculously, the Kruvim would mirror the state of the relationship between God and the Jewish people. When the statues faced away from one another, it was because that we, the Jewish people, had distanced ourselves from Hashem by not doing His will. And when they faced one another, miraculously, they would turn to one another. So that expressed that God was close to us because we were with Him doing His mitzvahs. One would think that at the time of the destruction, the Churban, that the Kruvim, the cherubs, would be facing completely away from one another, mirroring the total estrangement of God and the Jewish people. But the Talmud, the Gemara, in Yuma, on Daf Nun Beis, Amud Beis, says, Omer Reish Lakish, B'shah shenichnasu nachrim leheichal. At the time when the heathens entered the sanctuary, they saw the Kruvim, Mu'uravim zeh im zeh. They saw the cherubs, the Kruvim, intertwined. Hotzion, the heathens took them out to Lashuk, into the marketplace. V'amru, and they said, Yisrael halolu, these Jews, this Yisrael, shebir kosen bracha, that their bracha is a blessing. Their blessing is a blessing for klalosa and klala, and their curse is a curse. Ya'asku b'davarim halolu. They're involved in these kinds of things. And miyad hizilum, they disparaged them, they cheapened us. Shenema, as it says in the Pasuk, kol mechabdea, all those who honored her formerly, hizilua, they disparaged her, they cheapened her. Ki ro ervasa, because they saw her nakedness. At this lowest point, the time of the destruction itself, the Romans saw the Kruvim, the cherubs, medubokim zeh lo zeh, literally stuck to one another, umachabkim zeh lo zeh, intertwined with one another, kazocha v'anakeva, like a loving couple. The Ritva called this a neslara, literally a miracle for the bad. Now, ostensibly this sounds contradictory. A nes, a miracle, is supposed to reveal Hashem in the world. Ra, evil, is the contradiction of His very existence. The Kruvim were locked in an embrace of the greatest possible love and intimacy. The Romans saw this as obscenity, and to the Jewish people, it was a sign of the undying love of Hashem, that from this lowest point, this total darkness, the people of the moon would rise again, reborn. The Jewish people are the people of the moon. As we say in Kiddush Levana, the sanctification of the moon, that we are Hasidim Lischadesh Kamosa. Like the moon, we will be renewed. Like the moon, we will arise from nothing. We are the Amuse Botton, awaiting to be born from nothing, like the moon.